Hey, welcome back to Everyday Economics. This is the podcast that you learn about the economic world happening around all of us every day. I'm your host, Chris Krug, publisher of the Center Square Newswire service. Everyday Economics is brought to you by the Center Square. We're recording on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2026. And joining me as always, my friend and colleague, Dr. Orphe Divounguy, is a PhD economist. Hey, today, we're going to talk about the hidden squeeze and what's actually happening to workers and households right now. The headline numbers are masking a worse reality. GDP has been revised down by half. The labor market looks okay on the surface, but I think what we're finding is that it isn't, and households are getting hit from both directions. This is the What's Really Going On episode that we're going to do today. The economy entered 2026 weaker than most people thought. Revised GDP cut fourth quarter growth in half. The labor market is cooling underneath a steady-looking unemployment rate, and households are getting squeezed again from both sides, slowing wages and rising prices. Today, I want you to break down what the headline numbers are hiding, why personal income gains aren't reassuring as they may sound, and how long an oil shock needs to last before it hits everyday people. So let's get going. The GDP revision from 1.4% down to 0.7%. It's a pretty big miss. How much should people be reading into this and into a revision like that versus treating it like a statistical note?
Well, I mean, it's what we've been talking about for the past year. Everything we've talked about so far, job growth stalling in 2025. You enter 2026. We had the January job number that was kind of like unrealistic, in my opinion. And then in February, everything came back down to earth, with job loss, actual job loss. The truth is somewhere in the middle, and the middle is basically no job gains so far this year. What does it mean for people? It means, you're less likely to get a salary increase this year than you did 2 years ago or 3 years ago. You're less likely to find a job because the number of job openings is actually roughly 10%, a little over 10% lower than the number of job seekers. And so if you're unemployed today, it's much more difficult to find a job. In fact, the Conference Board has a nice survey that shows that the share of people who say a job is really hard to get has absolutely increased. It's the highest in a very long time, over a decade. And so that is kind of the economic situation we entered 2026 in, right? So on the income side, income gains have slowed. People aren't getting big raises this year. Unemployed workers are not finding work, and so not able to, get some wage income. And then on the expenditure side, right? So, you think about that budget constraint on the spending side. Well, what are we seeing? We're seeing delinquency rates have increased. Right? Credit card delinquency rates are on the rise. Auto loan delinquency rates are on the rise. Student loan debt delinquency is on the rise. Credit scores are falling because of the increase in delinquency rates. And then, of course, then we got hit with first price, this inflation essentially stalling. And we're starting to see prices accelerate again in 2025, and now we're getting hit with oil prices rising all at the same time. And so that is, yes, that big squeeze that you were referring to at the top of the show.
So in the Everyday Economics column, which comes out typically Sunday from Monday at the Center Square, you wrote that there are now more unemployed workers than open positions, but the unemployment rate hasn't exploded. Could you walk me through that? And could you tell me, is the headline number actually somewhat misleading at this point?
No, I don't want to dismiss the unemployment rate, but essentially the reality is that labor demand has declined, but so has labor supply. Right? And if you basically go back to your basic economics and you put together a graph, to look at kind of the intersection of labor demand and labor supply, right? You learn that the quantity can decrease, and prices remain the same. Wage growth has basically been flat, but quantity has decreased. quantity of right. And on the point of the unemployment rate specifically, the number of job seekers has declined. Labor supply has declined over the past year, and so that's why the unemployment rate has stopped rising. Right? Had we had the same number of job seekers in the labor force today, and we didn't have kind of this decline in labor supply, right? The decline in labor demand would have resulted in a higher unemployment rate. Mm-hmm. And so I look at it and I say, it's kind of lagging reality, and that if labor demand remains stubbornly low, right, the unemployment rate could start to increase in the future.
So, in your work this week, I mean, you described that households are getting squeezed, wages cooling on one side and inflation picking up on the other. How close are we to real wage gains actually going negative, in particular for lower income families?
Not yet. Wage growth, at least on average, wage growth is still positive.
Okay.
But if you stay unemployed long enough, your personal situation, becomes dire, right? And so, the duration of unemployment has increased, especially for lower skilled workers. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people have been talking about AI being the big reason for displacement, but actually what you're seeing is lower skilled workers, people without I should call it lower skilled. They have skills. They have different types of skills.
Right.
So workers without a college degree is the right terminology here.
Okay.
But workers without a college degree, you're seeing a similar increase in the unemployment rate, which means that, the struggles are not simply related to AI, right? Which disproportionately affect workers with a college degree, right? The struggles resemble what we consider late cycle dynamics. It's an economy that is slowing, that is affecting everyone, especially, right, disproportionately more those without a college degree. And so they are the ones that are seeing, minorities and individuals without a college degree are the ones that are seeing the biggest uptick in joblessness in the current environment, right? So a lot of people have been trying to, put this all down to AI. AI may play a small role, but ultimately we have an economy that is slowing. An economy that is slowing disproportionately harms those without a college degree more than those with a college degree. We're seeing it right now. So their wage gains are flattening.
Yeah.
And those at the top of the distribution are still able to see wage gains, but they're also able to capitalize on increases in the stock market, right? Which is, right, it generates non-wage income, right?
Yes.
Capital income, which actually, and dividends, which actually helps to support them. But even that, right, as of late, we know the stock market hasn't been doing as well as it was doing in 2025 and before.
Yeah, it's been, and absolutely in the most recent period, it feels like it's just kind of puttering along, gaining, losing, and ultimately, it certainly feels like in the last couple of weeks that my stuff has been really treading water. All right, last question. In the column this week, you mentioned that the Iran conflict and oil prices, even at the beginning of that, I was driving through Indiana and I saw diesel at $5.15 a gallon on credit, which is just like, that to me looks like West Coast pricing, right? But how long does it take an oil shock to linger before it changes the math for everyday households versus just being a blip at the pump?
Yeah, we had the IMF's managing director come out with an estimate, and what she says is a 10% rise in energy prices that's sustained for a year could add 0.4 percentage points to inflation and shave anywhere between 0.1 and 0.2 points off growth. Now, look, remember, if growth is, 1%, right, and you shave off 0.2 points of growth, right, you have an economy that's basically stalling.
Yes.
Right. And so that's a problem. If inflation is already 3%, and you are going up to 3.4% year-over-year price increases, that is going to really hurt, really squeeze families, right? Remember, the difference, nominal wages might be increasing, but if prices start to rise, right, your inflation adjusted wages are essentially going to be falling, and that's going to add to the squeeze, right? So it's a question of persistence. I think the key word here is persistence. If we see this war linger and issues getting oil to where it's needed, then we'll see oil prices, energy prices as a whole increase, and that's going to affect everyday households.
Yeah, I appreciate your thoughts as always, Dr. Orphe. Divounguy, this has been Chris Krug. Subscribe to Everyday Economics wherever great podcasts are hosted. Make sure you read Orphe's column each week at the Center Square and across the Center Square Newswire. And listen to Orphe and me every weekend on the Center Square Radio Hour.